Hello, everyone. This is James Strong, and this is KubePhilly for March 10th, 2022. As always, this is a CNCF community event, so that means it adheres to the CNCF Code of Conduct. If you have any issues with that, please report that to me or someone from the Code of Conduct staff. So today we have a really awesome meetup for two reasons. One, we're announcing our sponsorship from JFrog. So Ari from JFrog is here to tell us all about that. And we have the SIG release lead from Kubernetes talking about SLSA. So we're going to learn about what SLSA is. It's not just something delicious to put on your chips. And we'll talk about how Kubernetes is working to integrate all of that. So with that, I think, so like I said, generally we start with anyone who wants to introduce themselves new to the group, any projects you're working on. If you are looking to be hired or you're looking to hire, open the floor to the community for any announcements that they would like to talk about. No pressure.
Actually, I'll put one out there, James. At JFrog, we are looking for a director of developer advocacy. Our VP is looking to hire somebody who we have a great developer advocacy team, but we are looking for a director. So if anyone has experience in the developer advocacy space and developer relations would like to take on a role like that, let me know.
Awesome, thanks for that. All right, well, if no one has any announcements, I think the only real announcement I have is that I know the KubeCon schedule for EU just got posted, so that's out there. Look and see if there's any interesting topics. Of course, if you can't make it to Valencia, Spain, that's a pretty high bar, you can still join virtually. I know that at KubeCon North America in LA, they were doing the multicast of doing lots of presentations in person, but also broadcasting them, so you can still join virtually. So still something for everybody. And I know I'm gonna, put this announcement out there. I know Adolfo got one accepted. I unfortunately did not get my talk accepted. That happens, with all of the talks. So pretty exciting from that perspective. With that, I don't think there was any other announcements that I saw. I'll go ahead and we'll hand this off to Ari, our new sponsor from JFrog. So Ari, tell us all about JFrog and what you guys are doing to help us.
Okay, awesome. Well, first of all, thank you, James, for the opportunity. I'm going to go ahead and share a slide with everybody. One of the benefits to having maybe a small attendance tonight is actually somebody here who really has some great odds in winning our raffle tonight. But just in brief, my name is Ari Waller, and I am the Meetup Event Manager for JFrog. Yeah, it's a real title, and I got it. So I'm very, very pleased with that. It's pretty exciting to work with meetups for a living. Especially even though it's been virtual for the last 2 years, we are getting back into face-to-face meetups, and I'm very, very excited about that. Happy to be part of the Philly Kubernetes community. While I live in Atlanta, I am actually a Temple graduate. So I graduated from Temple University way back a long time ago. So I always feel like Philly's a home place for me. I'll share just a little bit about who we are. JFrog is the DevOps software company best known for Artifactory, which is
all right, before you keep going. Does the slide look all right for everybody? It looks like it's pretty cut off. I can only see like the top slide.
I can only see the top.
Okay.
Really? Is that better or no?
There we go. Yeah, that's better.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm glad you told me about that. Thank you. Yeah, I was wondering, maybe I may have pulled it. Oh, I see what happened. Okay. Everyone can see it now?
Yeah.
All right, good deal. I'll share just a little bit about who we are. JFrog is the DevOps software company best known for Artifactory, which is considered to be the gold standard for managing your artifacts and dependencies. But besides the raffle, I'll tell you about just in a few moments. JFrog actually has a free version of our cloud software and a free version of Artifactory available to the community. Now, it's not a trial version. It's not something that's going to run out and suddenly you're a customer. It's something that if you play with, you can continue to use it. No credit card is required to use it. There is one portion of it from a pipeline standpoint that requires a credit card that won't be charged just to prevent fraud. But other than that, it's yours to keep and play with as long as you would like. So that's something there. And if you were interested in that, you can scan the QR code or use the bit.ly link, which I'll drop in the chat in just a few moments. Now, also, if you're working with Docker, like I know a lot of you are, you can use Artifactory as a pull-through cache, and you'll be exempt from any rate limits on pulls from free or anonymous accounts. That's because of a partnership that we set up with Docker as soon as they put those in place. JFrog was one of the first to set up that arrangement with them, and that partnership still exists today. So that could be of value to you, and that even does work in our free version. So there you go. Tonight's raffle is going to be for Oculus Quest 2. So someone will have a really cool opportunity to win that. Now we don't, unfortunately, I can't, because of compliance purposes, do online sweepstakes as a public company for various reasons. I mean, but we do pick someone randomly within 2 business days. We contact you by email, and once you formally accept the prize, we would be able to we will of course share the winner with the entire community. So we can all celebrate with you. We'll even send a tweet out on your behalf as the winner of that. So you can scan the QR code there and use the bit.ly link also to take part in that. And I'll also drop those 2 links in the chat. But all in all, we're just happy to be part of what you have going on there. I'm excited. I can't wait to get up there in person when you start holding them in person, James. And really looking forward to Adolfo's talk today. So thank you.
Awesome. That's awesome. Definitely will use that free cloud subscription. It's always nice to test out tools and things that we're trying. So I appreciate that. That's awesome.
Pleasure. Good deal.
All right. And with that, the man of the hour, Adolfo, go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll let you teach us all about SLSA.
Awesome. Just let me share the presentation, and please let me know if you can see it.
Yep.
Okay.
I see the little squid down there. Octopus, I'm sorry.
Exactly. Yeah, so first of all, thank you, James, for having me. I'm really excited to share some of the work that we've been doing to make the Kubernetes release process a little bit more compliant with the SLSA framework, which we're going to be talking about in a little bit. So first of all, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Adolfo Garcia. I work at a happy place called Chainguard, which is a supply chain security company. I am also, during the night times mostly, well, now it's my daytime job as well, but for years I've been working, moonlighting and over the weekends as a technical lead for Kubernetes SIG Release. I have 2 girls, and I like to go around the world in my bike whenever I can. At least I used to before the pandemic hit. And you can find me as at Puerco on most Twitter, Slack, Kubernetes, etc. So before we start, I would like to just so if I have some takeaways, I would like to so some takeaways I would like to leave you today is first, I want to share the assessments, the way we did the assessment to see how the Kubernetes release process stands in light of the SLSA framework. I would like to share some of the successes that we already had with this effort, and which are already working for you as Kubernetes end users or repackagers even, and also some of the challenges that we've faced so far and that we are still currently facing. Okay, so first, before we start, I would like to do a little bit of a SLSA introduction. So SLSA, which is an acronym that means supply chain levels for software artifacts, is a framework to ensure that that attempts to guide you to secure your software releases. If you think about a release pipeline, for example, there are many attack vectors that can compromise the artifacts that you are putting out. So it's a complex thing to secure your release process, and it's also an even more complex fact that an even more complex task to secure your software releases if you think of them inside of a broader supply chain. So SLSA attempts to give some recommendations on how to secure your releases by giving you gradual levels that you can start applying, and that also will give you a better understanding of your release process. Okay, so the next thing I would like to briefly touch is how Kubernetes is released. The Kubernetes release process is powered by a tool called KREL, which is an acronym or pseudo acronym for Kubernetes Release Tool. And this tool is designed, it does many things, not only releasing Kubernetes, it's also used for generating the release notes for Kubernetes. It's also used for publishing CVE information whenever there's a vulnerability in Kubernetes. And it also builds, it also has a mode to build Kubernetes daily so that end-to-end tests can run, and several other things. But it also, the main part that concerns us today is that it runs the Kubernetes release process. So KREL has two main modes of operation: first staging and release. So the idea is that we, every time we do a Kubernetes release, we stage everything and make sure that the artifacts look correct and that everything looks as expected. Then we do a promotion of those artifacts and then release them. The promotion step in the middle, what it does is that let's say we open a pull request for proposing the images that are going to be released, and then it is signed off by some parties, the release managers generally, and after approval, it goes. They get promoted and they're available to the public. So some quick facts about the releases: we produce over 30 container images of all the Kubernetes components for all the architectures. We produce over 50 binaries of different kinds, also for different architectures and operating systems. We produce a set of tarballs, not only the source code tarball, but there are some tarballs that contain some parts of the systems. For example, if you think there is a tarball that contains all of the binaries for the node, so those are in there. We also produce a set of SBOMs, a software bill of materials, and some provenance metadata. These two items we're going to be explaining a little bit more later today. And the release process also handles some automation that updates the GitHub page, produces release notes, it sends out the announcements that get published to the mailing list and so on. And then a final part of the release is that we produce RPMs and dev packages. And these are not done by us. They are built by a team inside of Google because they have some special access that is needed to build them, and which is an important part that we're going to talk about in a little bit as well. So the main effort about making the Kubernetes release process SLSA compliant is tracked by a KEP, which is a Kubernetes enhancement proposal, which is KEP 3027. I'm going to have links in this presentation, which maybe we can share at the end for all of these things that we were talking about. So the KEP proposes a schedule of enhancements that we have to do to meet the highest level of SLSA that we can. So if you remember from
for the folks who might not know, can you explain what a KEP is?
Yeah. So the KEP is a public document that proposes an enhancement to Kubernetes, specifically to whenever an enhancement affects end users, you have to write up a KEP, and all of the stakeholders, generally other SIGs, will go and comment, and you can discuss how the enhancement will be handled and the schedule and all of the infrastructure needs that it has, and if it will have an effect on downstream consumers, and also the documentation that is going to be put out. And then after discussing some of that, it merges, and then you can use that as a guiding document for the effort that you're conducting.
So it's not needed for every pull request into Kubernetes, just for changes that will affect end users.
Exactly. So if you propose, for example, changing a flag inside of the kubelet, you will have to put out a KEP discussing and proposing and explaining why you think it's a good idea, and others will comment on that. And if it gets accepted, it merges, and then you do that. So the KEP that we open for SLSA compliance is the KEP number 3027, which is titled, the full title is SLSA level 3 compliance in the Kubernetes release process. So if you think about the levels that we just saw, SLSA goes up to level 4, but the challenges to comply with SLSA get harder as you move up. So it was decided to scope the KEP only until SLSA 3, because there are some challenges that we're going to see later that we think that we cannot comply with. So we scoped it to level 3. So okay, so last year we started the SLSA challenge. This is a photo of me with a couple of salsas. I am Mexican and I live in Mexico, so that means I was born with a professional degree to be able to talk about salsas and tacos and all of that. So this is also going to be salsa thing, so get ready. So last year, around the mid, it was about 1 year ago, we started the process doing an analysis of the Kubernetes release process and making sure, well, first doing an assessment of where it stands and trying to match the Kubernetes release process with the SLSA spec that was out at that time, which was 0.1. And we built this spreadsheet where we made it public and everybody could go and discuss and comment about each of the requirements of SLSA. We're going to go level by level and I'm going to explain some of the challenges that we're facing and how those were solved. Some of them we didn't have to solve them because as the release process runs inside of Google Cloud Build, so some of the requirements just come for us for free via the build service we use, but we're going to go step by step and see each of them. So the first one, SLSA level 1. SLSA level 1 is titled documentation of the build process, and it involves the following, it imposes the following requirements. So the first one is that your source code has to be version control, which most modern projects are anyway, because most people handle them in Git, so that's a given. Then your build has to be scripted in the sense that you cannot be issuing commands to do your build by hand. You have to have a script that runs it. Then you have to have provenance metadata available, which is a format. Provenance, what it means, what it means in the context of supply chain security is some metadata that your build process produces that allows you to track each of the artifacts, and it allows you to verify that they were produced at some point in the build process. We're going to see an example of this in a little bit. Then the provenance should identify the artifacts, identify the builder that built the things, and it also should list the actual instructions that went into building your software release. So we took this to make sure that we comply with SLSA level 1. We went back to the spreadsheet, did the analysis, and determined that we were at like this. So at that point, we had version control and a scripted build, but in order to comply with SLSA level 1, we had no provenance. So we had to build that into the release process, which we did. And we actually modified the release process in order to ensure that when we stage the build, it produces a provenance attestation, and that provenance attestation gets checked before releasing to ensure that the artifacts look and have the integrity that the provenance attestation specifies. So we did that, and we announced it during KubeCon in Los Angeles. This was a moment where we announced that the Kubernetes process was SLSA level 1 compliance. So before we go further to the next levels, I would like to show you just briefly what the actual provenance looks like. Let me switch my screen and share my terminal.
While you're doing that, has anybody heard about SLSA or worked with, read about SLSA before today's meetup? Nope.
Okay, so probably, so go ahead.
No, I was just waiting for folks to answer the question. Are you good?
Yeah, so I think the important part to say here is SLSA is a project that is now under the OpenSSF Foundation, the Open Source Security Foundation, and it has a very lively community so far, where there are folks involved from many companies, and it's and you can join the calls there every other Thursday, and I think I have a link at the end of the presentation, and when we share the presentation there, you can follow the links there. So can you see my terminal?
Yes.
Okay, is it big enough?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So let me show you inside of the bucket of a Kubernetes release. So this is the bucket where the 1.23.4 version is located, and you can see. So this is everything that is inside of the release. Some of the tables that are here. There are. This is the bill of materials. There's over here the directory with the binaries and so on. So let me get first of all, let me show you one of the SBOMs so that you can see the information that we are producing. So this is, I'm not going to go into what an SBOM is very deeply, just to say that an SBOM is like a file that lists everything that we are putting out in our release. It lists all of the images, all of the binaries, the dependencies that go into the code, so that the idea of an SBOM is that whenever if a vulnerability is announced, for example, you can take the SBOM of the software you're running and ensure that that vulnerability is not, or check if that vulnerability applies to you. So an SBOM looks like this. It lists all of the files, their hashes and so on, the licensing information, everything is in there. There are if someone is interested, I can share some presentations that we've done about SBOMs in the past, but I can show you what's contained in there. Yeah.
I just linked them your blog post about what is an SBOM.
Okay, cool. So this is, let me show you. So maybe. Okay, so let me show you what it contains inside of the SBOM. So this SBOM describes the Kubernetes release. So you can see here, these are the images. This is done by a tool that we produce in SIG Release for writing and working with SBOMs. It allows you to see inside of the SBOM to check what's contained in the document. Because if you remember, the source code of the SBOM is very hard for people to actually parse the information, and this allows you to visualize it a little bit. So if you see the SBOM, it contains information about the images, all of the layers. Then further down below, so these are the actual files that are included in the release, like each of the binaries for the kubelet, the API server, all of the kubectl, all of those are contained in there. So keep in mind that one, because the SBOM is going to play some part in the SLSA compliance effort. And the other one that I wanted to show you was the provenance attestation, which is this one should be, yeah. Okay. Let's see if this works. Yeah. Okay. So this is a provenance attestation. The provenance attestation, like I was saying before, lists all of the files that were produced during staging, with some hashes to ensure their integrity. And it allows you to check that one step of a build matches, so that one step of a build receives what it's expecting from the previous step. So this lists all of the artifacts that get produced during the build, but the part that I wanted to show you is here. So in the end, this part of the build lists where it was run. So it's in cloud build. It lists the configuration that we use to run the build. It lists the actual Git commit where we were building. So if you go back in the Kubernetes source code history, you can go to this commit and ensure that that's where version 1.23.4 was cut. And then there is other information about the release process itself, so the date, the invocation. So this invocation ID, you can actually go and check inside of the Google Cloud Build logs that's when we ran. And here is the build commit again. So I just wanted to show you this because I didn't want to be just like a conceptual thing. I wanted you to see the actual file. So let me switch back to the slides to continue on the presentation. Okay, where's the window? Okay, here. Okay. So where we stand is at SLSA level 1. That's the part that we did last year, and we've been working this year to comply with SLSA level 2. So just so the way we scheduled the KEP is that we wanted to comply with SLSA level 1 for Kubernetes 1.23, which is done. Then SLSA level 2, we're attempting to get it ready for Kubernetes 1.24, and maybe if we can reach SLSA level 3 by Kubernetes 1.25. Each of the releases takes around 4 months, and it involves work that also apply to other KEPs, which we're going to see right now. So giving an overview of SLSA level 2, these are the requirements that are on top of those of SLSA 1. So the first one is that builds should run in a build service. They should be authenticated. Service generated means that the actual build service should give you the provenance, and then it should identify some of the build point that you were running when you got the release. So this is the way that we consider it to be. So we are running in a build service, which is Google Cloud Build. The build is authenticated, so so the build is authenticated. It means that you can actually verify it via the attestations that the build was run by someone but that the provenance actually was generated by the build service. This is not in place yet, and also so the idea is that we are currently working on a big signing effort of all the Kubernetes artifacts. So we are working on establishing with the SIG project, establishing delegation of trust from SIG. If you're not familiar with SIG, it's another project of the Open SSF, which allows you to do easy signing of software. And you can, via a very easy to use a set of tools, sign your container images, sign your binaries. And the idea is that we are building all of the SIG tools into the Kubernetes organization. So all of the projects that are release artifacts built as part of the Kubernetes organization are going to get signed. And one of the things that we need to sign is the provenance attestations, So once we get the signing effort into place, we'll be able to meet the point number 2 here, which is authenticating the provenance attestations. Then the third point is if the provenance, so the language there is a little bit vague. So the build service is generating so the build service should generate the attestation. So if you think about running, for example, your builds in GitHub Actions, there is a chance that GitHub Actions could at some point give you a provenance attestation of your artifacts without you doing anything. The same could be true for Cloud Build. It could run and give you the attestations that you need to comply with this point. Those two currently do not give you that, but when we run the builds, our build system generates those attestations. So there is currently some doubt if this counts to meet this point or not, because we do get the provenance attestation without any human intervention and runs and gets produced inside of the service. So there's still some discussion if that is valid to ensure this point here. SLSA is still currently under development. So the current version is 0.2 of the specification, and people are bringing their feedback all the time, and it gets incorporated into the specs all the time. So it's rapidly changing. So as it stands right now, we believe that we may be able to comply, but it's open for interpretation. And then finally, the identify source code, as we saw in the example file of the provenance that the Kubernetes build process produces, we do list the Git commit where it was produced. Okay, so next point, SLSA level 3. So SLSA level 3 is so the first. If you think about the evolution of the SLSA levels, the first one allows you to know what's going on inside of your build process. Then the second level allows you to make sure that that information that you're getting from your build process cannot be falsified and is actually signed, and so that there's no question of its authenticity. And SLSA level 3 attempts to plug some of the common threat vectors for build processes. So these are some of the next requirements to meet with SLSA 3. So the first one is the verified history, means that each of the changes to the source code has to be strongly authenticated. So it has to be strongly authenticated is also open for interpretation. We in Kubernetes, let me jump to the next slide, which allows which is colored so that we can discuss each one. So if you ever contributed to Kubernetes, all of the whenever you open a pull request, you have to send that with your credentials, And also, whenever those pull requests are authorized and approved and LGTM'd by someone, they get an identity which we consider it matches this point. Then the next point, build as code. Let's leave the two red ones until the end.
I was going to say one of the other points in the Kubernetes community is that you have to have multi-factor authentication turned on to your GitHub account in order to put in a pull request. So that's one of the things from a strongly authenticated perspective.
Right, and also the reviewers have to match those requirements. So we think that we're good on that side. Let's leave the red ones for discussion at the end. Then the build service.
Puerco, we have a question in the chat. It says,
okay.
how are you ensuring dependencies are not vulnerable during the build process?
So we don't have a way of knowing that just now. There are some efforts in the in SIG security to implement scanning of code. There are some efforts also to automate the incorporation of CVEs into the base images that we use in the dependencies, but we simply run and pull the dependencies. We do have turned on, for example, Dependabot on some of the repos, but not all repositories have it. And whenever we put out a release, we do like strong attempts to ensure that. So we have the dependencies up to date, but those are up to date as the dependency admins, I think they're called. So if you see the code in Kubernetes, dependencies are tracked by a specific group that handle that part of the code. Not everyone. So if you, for example, if you attempt to put a pull request that updates a dependency, it has to be authorized by a set of people that handle that. There's a document somewhere that has a dependency policy that establishes that project. So we on the SIG release side just make sure that all of the dependencies we are pulling match those set up by the code, and trust that from the dependency administrators. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
It's currently in process.
Okay. All right. So, okay. Then going back to the requirements, the isolated requirements of the build process, that one is handed for us for free by Google Cloud Build. So whenever you run a Google Cloud Build, it will launch your build in an isolated environment, so that is complied with. The non-falsifiable. Okay, so this one. Okay, so the non-falsifiable aspect, what it means is that whenever you put out a provenance file, your users should not be able to falsify that. We ensure that it is not yet in place, but once we start signing it, we're going to be able, only the release process service account is able to produce and sign those files. So we consider that to be, it will be handed down by the signing efforts on SLSA level 2 when we comply with SLSA level 2. Then the entry point is the same part of establishing the actual build point, the git commit that we run the build from. Then all the build parameters, if you remember the SaaS attestations that we're putting out right now, they already have the build parameters in there. So we are good on those. Now on the part then of the upcoming efforts to comply with SLSA level 3. The first one is build as code. So whenever the build as code requirements, there is a project which is in just a plan. There is no code yet for it. is that the idea is that we will be able to have inside of one of the Kubernetes or release engineering repositories, we're going to be able to have a definition of the build that we want to run, where we will list, for example, the build point. We will list the actual platforms that we expect to build and things like that, and that is going to get checked into the repository, and the build is going to run configured by those. The idea of this is that currently the way the build process runs is that one of the release managers executes the build process from their computer. The build doesn't run in that person's laptop. It runs in Google Cloud Build, but it is launched by the release manager. It does some things to ensure that, for example, a release manager cannot specify the build commit where the build process runs. It all gets determined by the actual release process. But when for example, when releasing, there's a chance that you can specify some another build point because sometimes we do several stages if something fails, for example. So when you release, you tell the release process to use, as for example, the next one is going to be, I think, 1.23.5. You can specify, you have several builds staged in the buckets, and when we release Kubernetes, we tell it, okay, so for Kubernetes 1.23.5, use this specific stage build. And the idea of having the build and release as code is that a file gets checked into the release, into one of the SIG release repositories that is validated by some of the release managers, and then we release based on the information on that file, so that there cannot be either error or malice when releasing them. So we have to, that project is still just planned. If someone wants to help building that, you are more than welcome to come and help building the build as code for Kubernetes. And then finally, the ephemeral environment. Okay, so I made a mistake. So the ephemeral environment is in place, and we get that handed down by Google Cloud Build as well. So when the idea of that point is that you run your builds, and it runs either in a container or runs in a virtual machine that runs, executes the build, and gets disappeared, so that you don't, there's no risk of getting a compromised environment handed down by a previous process that ran in it. That one should be green because it's already in place. Okay, so now the final level of SLSA level 4. This is the hardest level to comply with, and we decided to leave this out because it involves a lot of human efforts that have to go in place, which we're going to talk about briefly. So these are the first ones. Let me switch to the color slide. So the first one, parameterless. Like we said, currently a release manager can pass some parameters to the build system and may be able to do some tampering in there. The idea is that whenever you run your builds, they don't have any parameters. It all gets defined inside of the build as code that we looked at before this slide. Then the hermetic build, we don't comply with that because the idea of a hermetic build system is that it doesn't have any access to the network. So if it gets compromised, you may be able to scan your build system, see nothing there, but if it gets compromised at some point of the build, if you have it hermetic, it doesn't have a way to reach out to the internet and download malware or patches or whatever. We don't comply with that one. The builds run with full access to the internet because we pull all of all sorts of things right now. If you think when a build runs, it pulls down dependencies, it pulls down licensing information, it talks to GitHub for several things, to Docker to pull some base images and so on. So that we don't play with that one. Then reproducible. So reproducible builds are a subject of their own and could be the subject of a talk by itself. So the idea of a reproducible build is that if you run your build at the same commit point over and over, you get the same byte for byte files every time you run it. So it doesn't. So Kubernetes doesn't have that yet. I doubt that we will ever be able to have a reproducible build because there's entropy in there of all sorts from the dependencies and from some of the processes that we run inside, from signing things, generating hashes, and so on. And then so in the below two, we do comply with. So if you saw the SBOM that gets produced with the Kubernetes releases currently, it includes all of the dependencies of the software, and it includes all of the transitive dependencies as well. So the difference between those two are the dependencies are all of the Go dependencies that Kubernetes uses, and the transitive dependencies are all of those that the dependencies depend on. So the two levels of dependencies, those are included in the SBOM that gets produced. So we already complying with that. So these are more technical requirements, and there may be a way to comply with them, but the hard ones are the next ones. So these are more human requirements that are harder. So, well, the first one, the first one is the information to reproduce the build. As we said, we don't have reproducible builds right now in Kubernetes, so there's no information to run the build and make it and reproduce it. But then security. So the security, the idea of that one is that your build process is certified by some standard or some undergone some security audit. While there is a chance that we may be able to do that, there is still an ongoing debate in the SLSA community of how to actually express that in your in a machine learning way. So the expectation is that at some point there will be some security auditors that will be able to certify your build in a way that satisfies the SLSA spec, and then produce some sort of an electronic attestation that your build is compliant. So that one is still in progress, and we are far from reaching SLSA level 4, so we don't comply, and we currently we are not attempting to comply with that one. Then there's the factor of access and the super users. So these two have a problem with Kubernetes. So some of the infrastructure where Kubernetes gets released is owned by Google. As we were saying at the beginning of the talk, for example, the RPMs and the dev packages are cut in every release by a Googler. So all of the volunteers that take part in SIG release can, well, not all of the volunteers, but the release managers any of them can run a Kubernetes release. They have the necessary access. They can run the process and generate the images and generate the binaries. But when it gets to the RPMs and dev packages, those can only be done by Googlers. And all they have to do, so there is a team of volunteers inside of Google that handles this part. But in theory, any Googler can request access to cut the Kubernetes packages. So if you consider it inside of the Kubernetes organization, we have like a known unknown on the Google side, because we don't really know who can access or has at any point access to the keys necessary to sign the packages. So we consider that to be unachievable at the moment, because we depend on a third party, which we cannot ensure that we can restrict the access to. And the same thing as super users. So some of the projects were, so the Kubernetes releases run on Google Cloud, and those projects are owned by Google. And some of them are the owners of those are groups, and those groups have access as super users to the projects that we don't control. So that's also one that we cannot ensure that or restrict access to the actual project owners. So if you think of those factors, we decided not to pursue SLSA level 4 at the moment, because there are things that are outside of the release engineering team. So once we reach level 3, we may be able to start discussing some of those things, and maybe attempt to get some of the SLSA level 4 requirements in place, but so far it's simply not possible. And yeah, I think the next and final thing is that I wanted to invite anyone who wants to, who likes this sort of thing and likes exploring some of the edges of supply chain security, because we are really working with the specs as they go, to join the effort. We invite you to come to the SIG release channels, which are SIG release and release management on the Kubernetes Slack. These are links for the KEPs, for the SLSA level 3 compliance, for the signing of all the Kubernetes artifacts, which we are currently building, and some links. I'm leaving here some links for the repositories in SIG release, so that you can take a look at the tooling, and my contact information if you want to ask any questions or ensure that that all your doubts are covered. I hope it was kind of clear what I did, and with that, thank you so much, and happy to answer any questions around the topics that Chad just covered.
That was a lot of information. I definitely will be going back over that recording and be asking you more questions, since I'm a coworker and I can bug you all the time. But this is a lot of information. It was really helpful to go through all of that. Folks, do you have any questions? Was that just a deluge of information? We'll have to invite Adolfo back when 125 gets cut and check up on the progress.
Yeah, at any time we can do like an update, and also, so I think the next big one is going to be when we start signing the images, because you will be able to one, verify any of the artifacts that you download from Kubernetes, but also it will enable tooling downstream that checks and what if you build any tool that consumes any of the Kubernetes binaries or images, they will be able to ensure that what they're pulling from the network is actually a valid artifact from the Kubernetes organization. Gotcha.
We got a question in chat from Will. Did the SLSA spec or the SBOM spec come out first? That is a question I don't know the answer to. One of our other coworkers is on here. I don't know. Tracy, do you know the answer to that? I'm just gonna put you on the spot. I saw you sneak in here.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think SBOMs have been around for quite a long time. So I would say they came first. Though SLSA, while fairly recent, it is based on an internal Google system, which has been around for about 8 years. So in its current incantation as an open source thing, it's relatively new, but it is based on like 8 years of experience from Google.
Yeah, gotcha. Awesome. Thank you for that. Also, folks, Ari did place in there the things for the raffle, so go ahead and make sure to follow those links and sign up for that free subscription. Will's got another question. Will SLSA be merged with any FIPS or FedRAMP requirements? I don't know about being merged with those. I know NIST just came out with a new framework, SSDF, so Secure Software Development Framework, to help augment the SDLC stuff. So they have requirements on there about how to do secure software development. I don't know if anyone's done a matchup between SLSA requirements and the SSDF framework. So that'd be an interesting blog post to write.
Yeah, indeed. And also, well, one of the benefits of SLSA is that it allows you to do this gradually. So sometimes when specs come out, there are a list of requirements that sometimes are hard to match. But SLSA allows you to start gradually and tackle the most pressing threats to your pipelines first.
I have a question, Adolfo. How many folks are there on the release team that you're coordinating across and using SLSA as a way to focus everybody?
So the release management team, there are two levels of release managers. The first one are the full-blown release managers, and we are, and I say we because I'm part of those. I think there are 5. Yeah, 5. And then we have, I think, another 7 release manager associates, which are in the process of learning, and which at some point are going to become full-blown release managers. The difference between the two is that the full-blown release managers can at any time launch a Kubernetes release, and the associates, they need to get access first before they can trigger one of the releases.
Cool.
Yeah, and that secondary team, that changes for every release cycle, right? Because you can nominate yourself to be part of that team.
No, that's the release team. So the release team
Okay.
is like another part of the Kubernetes releases, and they handle, they don't actually run the builds. What they do is they handle, I think it's 5 teams that they handle different aspects of the release, from communications, they handle the release notes, they handle the enhancements, like making sure that all of the proposed enhancements meet the deadlines to make it into the release. We have a bug triage team. There's also a CI signal that ensures that the tests are all green when running. And yeah, and anyone can participate in those as well. There's a survey that opens up whenever like a month before so it usually goes out when for the next release, when one release gets cut, and you can sign up for that. It's really hard to get a spot in there because there are only like available spots for around 13 to 15% of the applicants. The release team is somewhat large because it involves like 30 people, but we still get hundreds and hundreds of applicants, so it's hard to get a spot. But I mean, you can try and get involved. Usually, so it's the release. Each of the leads of the release team is supposed to. There are some criteria to picking up the folks that go into the team, and we try to ensure like the diversity, both in origin of the people, but also in a global time zone aspects, and yeah, make sure to go there. Whenever we put out the call, you can go and ask any questions. There are the guides for each of the team published in the SIG release, the SIG release repositories as well, if you want to get more information of the roles.
Awesome, thanks for that. All right, folks, do we have any other questions? I know there was a lot in chat. Do you have any questions? before we break. Again, make sure to fill out the survey so that you can get a chance to win the Oculus from JFrog and the free cloud subscription.
Yeah, actually, one thing also I forgot to mention is that, one of the reasons I joined JFrog is because I'm not a technologist. It wasn't because of the DevOps software for me personally. It was always the t-shirts. And what I forgot to mention is that I wanted to let you know, anyone that enters the raffle, there really are no losers. If you want a t-shirt, there should be a place in there for your address and your shirt size. I'm not going to come visit you or anything like that. All I'm going to do is put a t-shirt in the mail for you with our Black Panther Frog t-shirt, which I'm not wearing today, but just want to make sure that everyone here today will get one. So if you want one, it's yours. Thanks. That was a great talk, Adolfo. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. All right, awesome. Well, thanks everyone. We don't have an April talk scheduled just yet. As always, I'm always looking for speakers. If you have any projects or anything related to the CNCF, please let me know and we'll get that scheduled. All right. Well, thanks, folks. Thanks, Adolfo, again. That was awesome.
Yeah, and also just to emphasize, if you are interested in all of the releasing of Kubernetes, come join us. Our calls are every Tuesday in the American morning. So please come, say hi, and we'll be happy to host you there.
Yep, I posted a lot of links, and I'll get the recording posted as soon as it's done rendering. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.